Look, I've lived with a lot of weird roommates. One guy used to clip his toenails into the sink, but nothing prepared me for this night. Nothing. It was 3:04 in the damn morning, and I was dead asleep, dreaming about waffles or maybe something dirtier, when the fire alarm started screaming like a banshee on Red Bull. You ever wake up so disoriented your brain doesn't even register your own name? That was me. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, confused as hell, blinking into the darkness while this high-pitched shriek just kept going. Then came the pounding. Feet in the hallway. Doors slamming. Someone yelling, "This better not be another toaster fire!" I rolled out of bed, grabbed the hoodie from the back of my chair, and shoved my feet into my slides. That's when I turned around and saw my roommate Caleb, and that's when my night flipped upside down. Because Caleb, my 6'2" ex-wrestler, cocky as hell roommate, was standing in the middle of our tiny dorm room, completely naked. Like, not even a sock. "What the F?" I started, then turned around fast enough to give myself whiplash. "Dude, clothes!" He sounded half asleep, voice gravelly and unfazed. "What?" I didn't even know how to answer that. I mean, what do you say when your roommate casually gets out of bed in the middle of a fire drill, fully unclothed, scratching his head like it's just another Tuesday? "Caleb," I said, still facing the wall, "you are literally out here with your body in the wind." That got a laugh out of him. "Oh, right, sorry, man." I sleep naked. I gathered. I heard him moving, probably looking for clothes, but judging by the loud ugh, I assumed he wasn't finding any. "Where's my sweats?" he muttered. "Bro, we don't have time for you to go on a scavenger hunt. Just grab something, people are evacuating." He sighed dramatically, then said, "Fine, whatever." And a moment later, I heard the unmistakable rustle of him wrapping his comforter around his waist like some half-assed toga. "You decent?" I asked. "As decent as it gets." I turned around cautiously. Sure enough, there he was. Blanket around his hips, chest out, hair a mess, looking like a Greek god dragged out of bed too early. The worst part? He didn't even seem embarrassed. Just tired and kind of amused. The hallway was chaos. People in pajamas, boxers, hoodies, someone in a Pikachu onesie. The alarm was still blaring, echoing off the cement walls, and we joined the stream heading for the stairwell. "I swear," Caleb said, adjusting his makeshift wrap, "if this is another false alarm, I'm filing a lawsuit." "On what grounds?" "Emotional distress from your own nudity?" He grinned at me, that lazy, lopsided smile he always wore when he was being a little too confident. "You're just mad you saw my ass and liked it." "Jesus," I muttered, but I felt my ears get hot. Because here's the thing, I'm not out to most people, especially not my roommate. We've only lived together for a couple months, and Caleb's the kind of straight guy who lifts weights and watches UFC on weekends. He's cool, don't get me wrong, laid back, friendly, but we never talked about anything deep. He didn't know I was into guys, and I wasn't planning to tell him, which made moments like this complicated. We filed out into the courtyard with the rest of the building. It was cold, late October, and the concrete beneath my feet felt like ice. Caleb stood beside me, arms crossed, blanket still holding on for dear life. Some girl a few feet away giggled, nudging her friend. "Is that guy naked under there?" Caleb winked at her. "You'll never know." "Shameless," I whispered. He shrugged. "Not like I've got anything to hide." We stood there for what felt like forever, waiting for the RA or the fire department or someone to give us the all clear. Caleb yawned beside me, shifting on his feet. Then he looked over, his voice lower. "You good?" "Yeah. You?" He nodded, but there was something different in his tone. A little quieter. "Didn't mean to freak you out back there." I glanced at him, the way the moonlight caught the edge of his jaw, the shadows under his eyes. He actually looked soft in that moment. Not cocky, not half-naked and smug, just tired. Real. You didn't freak me out, I said, surprising even myself with how calm it sounded. Our eyes met. Just for a second. Then someone behind us yelled, "False alarm! Some dumbass burned popcorn!" Groans erupted around us as people turned back toward the building. Caleb laughed and muttered, "Called it." We started walking back inside, and I could still feel the cold on my skin, but now something else was humming under it too. Something I didn't have a name for yet. But it started that night, and it didn't end with the fire drill. The next morning, everything felt almost normal. I woke up around 9, blinking against the sunlight, slicing through our half-broken blinds. The memory of the fire drill came back instantly. Me in a hoodie and slides, Caleb wrapped in a blanket like it was his Roman Empire era. I rolled over and grabbed my phone. A few texts from our dorm group chat were already piling up. Who TF burned popcorn at 3 a.m.? Caleb, Apollo. Thompson really said FCK pants, huh? Your roommate's ass has its own zip code, not gonna lie. I groaned and tossed my phone face down on the bed. Across the room, Caleb was still out cold. The blanket had slipped to his hips again, exposing a ridiculous amount of tan skin and the curve of his back. He slept like the dead, arms flung out, face half buried in the pillow, hair a complete mess. I didn't mean to stare. I didn't want to stare. But I did. There's something about seeing someone in their unguarded moments. When they're asleep, unaware, not performing. Caleb always had this way of carrying himself like he knew eyes were on him. Like he didn't mind it. But asleep, he looked different. Softer. More real. Then he stirred, and I tore my eyes away so fast I nearly sprained something. "Yo," he mumbled, his voice rough with sleep. "What time is it?" "Little after 9, I said, pretending to scroll on my phone. "You missed your 8 a.m. Shit." He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. The blanket shifted again, and I had to stand up and walk to the sink before I full-on embarrassed myself. Caleb wasn't shy. About anything. I'd learned that early on. He'd walk around shirtless, scratch his stomach mid-conversation, leave the bathroom door half open while brushing his teeth. It wasn't like he was doing it to be seductive or anything. He was just one of those guys who didn't think twice about his body. And that made it worse, somehow. Because he wasn't trying. Which meant I was the one making it weird. I splashed some water on my face and grabbed a protein bar from my drawer. Caleb finally got out of bed, still draped in his blanket like it was a fashion choice. "I swear to God, if I end up on TikTok because of last night," he muttered. "You probably already are," I said through a bite. "Should have worn pants." He smirked, walking over to his dresser and pulling out boxers and sweatpants without a hint of shame. "You act like I have a reputation to protect. You're on the wrestling team. You kind of do." "Exactly," he said, sliding the pants up his legs. "Gotta keep things interesting." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop the smile pulling at my mouth. Caleb grabbed his water bottle and flopped back onto his bed, still shirtless, arms behind his head. "You looked kinda shook last night," he said after a beat. "Huh?" "During the drill, when you saw me." He looked over at me, his expression unreadable. "You were like, frozen." I went still, heart skipping. "Yeah, well," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "I wasn't expecting to be flashed before sunrise." He laughed. A low sound. "Fair." There was a pause. Not awkward exactly. Just quiet. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I used to think you were shy, but I don't think that's it." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "I think you just keep shit to yourself, like, you're always cool, polite, whatever, but it feels like there's a lot going on behind your eyes." I didn't know what to say to that, mostly because he wasn't wrong. So I said the first stupid thing that came to mind. "You watch way too much anime." Caleb burst out laughing, which broke the tension. "Shut up, I'm being deep here." "No, I get it," I said, more serious now. "It's just, I don't talk about stuff unless I have a reason to." "Maybe you should," he said, and this time, his voice was softer. We didn't talk about it after that. He went to shower. I left for class. The day moved on. But something stayed with me. The way he said that. The way he looked at me. Like he saw more than I wanted him to. And for the first time since we became roommates, I kind of wanted him to. A week passed after the fire drill. Caleb went back to his usual routine. Early morning workouts, classes, wrestling practice, late-night cereal bowls, and one went back to mine. We lived like we always did, side by side but in parallel. Only now, it wasn't quite the same. I noticed things more. The way he'd sit at his desk in just compression shorts, typing with headphones on, one leg bouncing slightly. The way he'd come out of the shower in a towel, hair wet and curling a little at the ends. Or how he'd toss his shirt into the hamper without thinking, giving me just a few too many seconds to look without getting caught. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that I was being ridiculous, that just because we'd shared an odd moment during a fire drill didn't mean he saw me any differently. But that didn't stop me from seeing him differently. The weirdest part? Caleb had started hovering. He'd linger longer when we talked. He'd sit closer on the couch when we watched TV in the common room. He'd nudge me during conversations more often. Shoulder taps, leg bumps under the table, quick pats on the back that sometimes felt like they lingered just a second too long. And I wasn't sure if I was imagining all of it. One night, around midnight, I was working on an essay, and Caleb walked in from practice, still in his singlet under a hoodie. His hair was damp, and he looked exhausted but wired at the same time, like his muscles hadn't figured out how to shut off yet. "Yo," he said, grabbing his water bottle from the mini fridge. "You up for a break?" I looked at my screen. 2 paragraphs and no thesis. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm just pretending to work at this point." "Want to hit the vending machines?" "Sure." We walked the dim hallway toward the lounge, footsteps echoing. The machines hummed under the flickering light of a motion sensor. Caleb punched in the code for his usual peanut M&Ms and leaned against the wall. "I ever tell you how I ended up here?" he asked suddenly. I frowned. "At school?" "Yeah. I almost didn't come. I was supposed to go to a school in Texas for wrestling. Full ride, but at the last minute, I backed out." "Why?" He shrugged, catching the bag of M&Ms with one hand. "Felt wrong, like I was chasing something that wasn't mine. My dad really wanted it. He's one of those, be a man, win or die types. I guess I just didn't want to wake up one day and realize I built my life on someone else's blueprint." I was quiet for a second. I hadn't expected that kind of honesty at 12:15 in front of a vending machine. "I get that," I said finally. "It's easy to just go along with what everyone expects. Harder to figure out what you actually want." Caleb turned to me, and his voice dropped just a bit. "Yeah, but what if you figure it out, and it's not what people think it should be?" I met his eyes, and there was something there. Not a challenge, not a joke. Something raw. I felt my heart pick up speed. "Then I think you owe it to yourself to want it anyway," I said quietly. He looked at me for a moment, like he was trying to decide something. Then he smiled, soft and a little crooked. "You're smarter than you let on." "I'm smarter than you let on." I shot back, nudging him with my shoulder. He laughed, full and warm, and for a moment everything felt good. Easy. We walked back in silence, side by side. Our arms brushed a few times. Neither of us pulled away. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at me. Like I wasn't just his roommate, like I was something else. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I knew this. Something was shifting. And it wasn't just in my head anymore. It happened on a Thursday night. I'd stayed late at the library trying to finish a group project solo because 2 of my partners apparently believed deadlines were optional. By the time I got back to the dorm, it was after 11, and the hallway was quiet, except for the faint hum of someone's Bluetooth speaker 3 doors down. When I opened the door, our room was dim, just Caleb's desk lamp on. He was sitting in his desk chair, one leg pulled up, headphones on, shirtless. Again, The glow from the lamp highlighted the muscles in his shoulders, his collarbone, the long lines of his arms. He looked up when I came in, popped one side of his headphones off. "Late night," he said. "Don't even ask." I groaned, tossing my backpack onto my bed. I wrote 3 pages of content and 2 pages of rage. Caleb chuckled, spinning slightly in his chair. "You want me to throw hands at someone? Just say the word." Tempting. He stood, stretched, then walked over to the fridge and grabbed 2 bottles of water, tossing one to me. "I was thinking," he said as I caught it, "we never did movie night like we talked about." I blinked. "You mean that conversation we had while we were doing laundry and half asleep?" He shrugged. "Still counts. You said you never saw Prisoners. I call that a crisis." I smiled. "Okay, valid. That movie's been on my list forever. Cool, let's fix that." Before I could answer, he was already setting it up on his laptop and pulling it over to the space between our beds. Adjusting pillows like this was some weekly ritual. "Come on," he said, sitting down and patting the spot beside him like it wasn't a big deal. I hesitated. This wasn't a big deal. We were roommates. Friends, kind of. Guys did this all the time, right? Still, my palms felt stupidly warm as I sat next to him. The movie started, and for the first hour, we barely talked. Just the sound of rain in the film, low dialogue, and Caleb occasionally muttering, "Damn," under his breath during the heavy scenes. I found myself hyper-aware of how close he was. Our knees brushed. His shoulder leaned into mine during a particularly tense moment. At one point, he shifted the laptop slightly toward me, and his arm rested behind me for just a second, just long enough for my pulse to pick up. Then about halfway through, during one of the quieter scenes, I felt it. His pinky, grazing mine. It wasn't dramatic, wasn't a grab or a move, just a small, quiet touch. Barely there. But he didn't pull away. Neither did I. I kept watching the screen, heart hammering now, mind spinning through possibilities. Was this on purpose? Was I imagining it? Then, slowly, his pinky hooked around mine. Deliberate. Gentle. And for a few seconds, neither of us breathed. I turned my head. Caleb was already looking at me. Not grinning. Not teasing. Just watching. Like he'd been waiting. My voice came out quiet. "What are you doing?" He swallowed. "I don't know. Just, does this feel weird?" I shook my head. "No. Not weird." He leaned back slightly, eyes still on me. "Because I've been thinking about that night. The fire drill." I almost laughed. "That was nearly 2 weeks ago." "I know," he said. "But I keep thinking about how you looked at me. Not just because I was naked." "You were very naked," I said, trying to keep it light, but my throat felt tight. He nodded. "But it wasn't that, it was something else. You looked surprised. But not just surprised, like something clicked." I didn't respond right away, mostly because I didn't know how to. My fingers were still lightly touching his, and everything in me felt like it was on pause, mid-air. Then he said it. "I've never done this before. I don't know if I'm what I am, but when I'm around you, it feels like something I should figure out." The movie kept playing, but neither of us was watching anymore. "I don't want to mess things up," he added. "You're not," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded slowly, then let out a shaky breath. "Okay." And just like that, he laced his fingers with mine. We didn't kiss. We didn't say anything else. We just sat there, hand in hand, movie still playing, hearts loud in the quiet. But something had shifted, and we both knew it. The next day was quiet. Not awkward, but not normal either. We didn't talk about what happened during the movie. We didn't need to. It was there. In the way our eyes met too long, in the way our shoulders brushed a little more when we passed in the room, in the way neither of us seemed in a hurry to put that night behind us. But we also didn't exactly jump into anything. Caleb was still Caleb, laid back, towel draped, protein shake chugging Caleb. And I was still me, overthinking, cautious, trying to make sense of something that didn't come with a manual. By Saturday afternoon, the silence had stretched too long. We were both at our desks, pretending to study, headphones in, but nothing really playing. Eventually, I pulled my earbuds out and turned. "Hey," I said, "you want to go grab food?" He looked up, surprised. "Like now?" "Yeah." I mean, we don't have to. Just thought it might be nice. He blinked a couple times, then nodded. Yeah, let's go." We walked to this little Thai place a few blocks from campus, the kind that smelled like warm spices, and always had a booth open. We ordered way too much food and sat across from each other, both pretending not to overanalyze what this was. About halfway through, Caleb leaned forward, elbow on the table. "So," he said, "about the other night." Here it was. I nodded slowly, setting down my chopsticks. "I don't want you to think I was playing around," he said. "That would be messed up." "And I'm not." "I didn't think that." He watched me for a second, then looked down at his food. "I've just never done anything like that before. I mean, I've hooked up with girls. Dated a few. But with guys?" He trailed off. I gave him time. He picked up a noodle, twirled it, didn't eat it. It's not like I never thought about it. I just never let myself go there, you know? Like it was easier to just play the part. I swallowed. "You don't have to explain yourself." "I want to, though," he said, meeting my eyes again. "You matter." I didn't say anything for a second. That word, matter, hit harder than I expected. He gave a small, almost nervous laugh. "This is probably the weirdest first date I've ever been on." That made me grin. "So it is a date. I mean, unless you're here just for the spring rolls." "They are pretty good," I said, keeping a straight face. He laughed, and the tension broke like a wave. When we walked back to the dorm, it was chilly again. October air. Caleb didn't say anything, but somewhere between the student center and our building, his hand brushed mine. Then he just held it. No one said a word. A few people passed us on the sidewalk, but we didn't let go. When we got back to the room, he kicked off his shoes and flopped onto his bed. "I feel like I'm in high school," he muttered, all flustered and unsure if I should kiss you or just sit here in panic. I stood by my desk, heart thudding. "Well, for what it's worth, I vote kiss." He looked up, surprised. Then he smiled. That smile, soft, half shy, not like his usual grin. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He sat up slowly, feet hitting the floor, and for a second, neither of us moved. Then he stood, took one step, and suddenly we were face to face. He was taller than me, always had been. But right now, it didn't feel like that mattered. He leaned in, his lips were warm, hesitant at first, like he was still figuring it out. But then I kissed him back, and something clicked. It wasn't dramatic, no music swelled in the background, no one clapped. But it was real, honest. When we pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "Okay," he whispered. "That was definitely not just about popcorn and a fire drill." "Nope," I said. "Not even a little." We sat on his bed for a while after that, talking. Not talking, just being close. And I realized I wasn't scared. Not of him, not of this. Because, whatever it was, it felt like the start of something we both wanted to figure out. After that night, things changed. Not in a big, dramatic way. There were no declarations, no labels. We didn't come out to the dorm or start holding hands in the dining hall, but something between us had shifted, and we both knew it. We moved differently now. Like one night, a few days after the kiss, I was brushing my teeth when Caleb came in shirtless, as usual, and stood next to me. Our eyes met in the mirror. Nothing was said, but when he reached for his toothbrush, his hand grazed mine and stayed there for a second too long. A small thing, but it felt like a conversation. Or the way he'd start doing homework on my bed instead of his. Just casually lying there, flipping through notes, our legs barely touching, once he fell asleep mid-chapter. I didn't move him. I just sat there, laptop on my lap, listening to him breathe. Still, there were moments when the silence between us felt heavy, like neither of us wanted to say the wrong thing. Or maybe we were both afraid to say the right thing and realize what it meant. Then came the night everything cracked open again. It was a Friday, and our dorm had one of those dumb, themed events in the lounge. This time, it was karaoke and cookies. Caleb and I weren't planning to go, but then he walked in while I was playing Mario Kart and said, "If I beat you in 2 rounds, you have to sing something." I scoffed. "You're on." He won. Barely. And the grin he gave me afterward was pure evil. So we went. The room was packed with people from the building, half of them already drunk from pre-games elsewhere. The air smelled like cheap frosting and powdered sugar. I tried to stay near the back, but Caleb grabbed 2 cups of hot chocolate and handed one to me. "You ready?" he asked. "For public humiliation?" "Always," he laughed. "We don't have to, but I kind of want to." That surprised me. "Really?" he nodded, eyes steady. "Feels like something we'd remember." So we signed up. And 20 minutes later, we were up there, 2 mics, terrible acoustics, singing Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon with full commitment and 0 vocal skill. Caleb danced like a lunatic. I was laughing so hard by the second chorus I couldn't breathe. The room cheered. Someone yelled, "Roommates of the Year!" We got off stage, breathless and red-faced. I could barely speak. Caleb grabbed my wrist, tugged me through the crowd toward the hallway, and when we were out of sight, he stopped. Then, without a word, he kissed me. This time it was different, firmer, more sure, like he wasn't testing the waters anymore. When we pulled apart, he just looked at me for a second and said, "I don't want to keep pretending like I don't think about this all the time." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. He kept going, voice low. "I don't know what I am. I'm still figuring that out. But when I'm with you, I don't feel confused. I feel like it makes sense." That hit me harder than I expected. Because that's how I'd been feeling too. Like this thing between us wasn't something I needed to name to understand. It just was. It felt good. It felt like us. "I don't need you to have all the answers," I said. "I just want you to be real with me." He nodded, pressing his forehead to mine. "I can do that." When we got back to the room, the energy between us was different. Quieter. Closer. We didn't rush anything. We brushed our teeth, changed, got into our own beds. But right before I turned off the light, Caleb said, "Hey, yeah? Can I sleep over here?" My heart thudded. I nodded once. "Yeah." He climbed into my bed, careful, slow, settled under the blanket beside me. Neither of us said anything for a while. We just lay there, not touching, listening to the sounds outside, laughter down the hall, someone opening a bag of chips, the soft whir of the heater kicking on. Then I felt his hand find mine under the blanket, fingers laced, and that was it. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just some weird in-between thing. This wasn't just comfort or curiosity. It was real, and it was just beginning. The next few weeks felt like living in a secret. A quiet, warm, unbelievably good secret. Caleb didn't make a big announcement. He didn't change overnight. He still watched MMA with his buddies, still tossed his dirty laundry in a pile he swore he'd get to later, still left half-empty protein shakes on the windowsill like a monster. But when it was just us, behind our dorm door, he was different. He was mine. It started with the small stuff. The way he'd look at me across the room when no one else was around. The way he'd lean into me when we were sitting side by side, like gravity just tilted that way now. Some nights, he'd climb into my bed without saying anything, like it was just a given. We never did more than kiss, hold each other close, fall asleep tangled up. It was slow, simple, and honestly, that made it feel even more real. We didn't talk about labels. I didn't push. He didn't deflect. We just existed in this thing together. But eventually, reality knocked. One Saturday afternoon, Caleb's wrestling teammates barged in. They were loud, all jokes and gym bags, razzing him about practice times and protein intake. I was at my desk, headphones on, pretending not to listen. "Yo, Caleb," one of them said, "we hitting the bar tonight or what?" "I don't know," Caleb replied, sitting up on his bed. "Might chill here." "Since when do you chill on a Saturday?" the guy laughed. "You got some secret girlfriend you're hiding from us?" They laughed. Caleb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He glanced at me, just for a second. Then he shook his head. "Nah, just tired." The moment passed, but it stayed with me. Later, after they left, I asked him, "You okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, just, it's harder than I thought." "You don't have to tell anyone," I said quickly. "Not unless you're ready." He looked at me then, serious. "It's not about being ready. It's about not knowing how. I've been this guy my whole life. This version of me. I'm scared if I change that, I'll lose people." I sat down next to him. "Maybe. But you might also find people who've been waiting for the real you." He nodded slowly, eyes on the floor. "I just don't want to lose you." "You won't," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." That night he pulled me close in bed and whispered, "You're the first person I've ever felt like this with. And I don't want it to stop." Neither did I. And it didn't. A few days later, we were walking across campus when someone from his team jogged by and called out, "Yo, Caleb, who's that?" He didn't hesitate. He squeezed my hand and said, "This is my guy." Just like that. My heart flipped so hard I felt dizzy. That weekend, he posted a photo of us on his Instagram story. Me blurry in the background, mid-laugh, with the caption, "Don't need much, just this." People noticed. Some asked questions. Most didn't. And Caleb didn't care. We still had things to figure out. We still had nights where we didn't know the right words, but we had each other. And that all started because of a fire drill at 3 a.m. and the roommate who came out naked. It's been 6 months since that night. Caleb and I live off campus now, in a small 2-bedroom apartment with bad lighting and an oven that clicks 3 times before it decides to turn on. It's not perfect, but it's ours. He still gets up early for practice. I still stay up too late writing papers or gaming. But most nights, we end up in the same bed, legs tangled, his breath warm against my neck. He's still figuring himself out, and I'm still learning what it means to love someone who's doing that. But we do it together. Sometimes I still think about that night, the fire alarm, the way he stood there in nothing but a blanket and confidence, the way I didn't know what it meant yet but felt it anyway. Funny how one moment, one ridiculous, sleep-deprived moment, can start everything. It wasn't the fire that changed our lives. It was what we found when we got back inside.